my other show. My name is Susan Rushton, and this is Muse. This is the show on which I'm privileged to, I'm thrilled to, I'm tickled to talk to people who are visited by the Muse. First, I'm going to introduce them to you. This is Larry Carducci. Welcome, Larry. And Thad Rogers.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you, gentlemen. These guys are winemakers. They are grape growers and winemakers. Maybe you're not a grape grower.
I am not.
Okay, but you're a winemaker.
I am.
Yes. Okay. And now you're thinking, what does that have to do with the Muse? What the Muse does about creativity and all that? There are several kinds of muses, like Calliope. I don't know what she was the muse of, but Terpsichore was the muse of the dance, and Polyhymnia, the muse of sacred hymn, and eloquence, and architecture. No, agriculture. I promise you, I have not been drinking wine today. And if that's not having anything to do with wine, I don't know what is. So these guys are visited by the muse of Polyhymnia. Thank you. Polyhymnia.
It's a pleasure.
And Polyhymnia, I guess, was a good friend of Dionysus, the god of wine and ecstasy. So, which made him very happy. So these guys, Larry and Thad, are deeply involved with Placer County Wine and Grape Association, pcwga.org, and Sacramento Home Winemakers on Facebook. And that's where you can go if you're interested in learning more about winemaking and grape growing. Please investigate. Gentlemen, why do you make your own wine?
That's a very creative hobby. You get to meet good people, good food, good wine. There's not a whole lot of things that are better in life than those two.
So it's part of you do this because you like the community.
I do.
Of winemakers.
It's a good, really good group of people.
Yeah.
And it's a good hobby. Keeps you out of trouble.
Well, I don't know. You're making wine, Larry. And apparently, great wine. Tell me about that.
I'd like to think that we're not competitive about this, but nobody wants to drink bad wine, so you constantly strive to make it better and better, and the way you make it better is you talk to people, you read, you do research, and you try to put all these things together, and then you enter these competitions because you get feedback from the judges to tell you, how to improve your wine, what's wrong with your wine, and it just sort of snowballs, and pretty soon you're entering competition, and like any competition, it's competitive.
Yeah, okay. So, now, how do you, aside from the fact that you both coincidentally, or perhaps not coincidentally, make wine, how did you meet? Because we make wine, Susan.
Well, we met through the Sacramento Home Winemakers. They are a club that is 150 families strong, and they are very good at promoting the art and science of winemaking in general, but specifically for the club, home winemaking. So we have winemakers in our club from Lake County, Concord, Stockton, up in the foothills. It turns out that he and I are up in the foothills up in Auburn. And so we became friends as we're sharing information, we're sharing tools, and we've just gotten to know, and muscle.
Muscle?
Okay. And muscle. We compete in competitions head to head a lot, and so there's a little bit of rivalry there, but we make very good wine, and the social aspect of the wine club is what I think I enjoy the most.
The social aspect, okay.
You got 150 families at any one monthly meeting, we could have 90 couples there,
Okay.
90 people there.
And this is the Sacramento Home
Yes,
Winemakers?
yes.
Okay.
They are the larger of the two clubs that you mentioned earlier.
Okay. And Larry, you've told me that the Sacramento Home Winemakers that's the biggest.
It's the oldest, I think 1973, it's the oldest wine club, I think, west of the Rockies, and so it's been around a while, and I think it's the biggest, if I'm not mistaken.
We are the largest continuous running home winemaking club west of the Rockies.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's there's a lot to do in the club.
Yes. And I will share this. Larry and I are friends, and which means my husband and he are friends, and he is part of the community that help you make your wine, and your wine, the Placer County Wine and Grape Association and the Sacramento Home Winemakers are. They don't sell their wine, right?
No one sells their wine.
Okay. And that's the same thing with Placer County Wine and Grape Association?
Yeah. We're predominantly Sac home wine. Thad and I are.
Yeah. And you don't sell your wine?
As a home winemaker, we are not allowed to sell. There's a bonding process in which you get registered with the federal government for taxes and the local and state agencies for taxes. As home winemakers, we're not allowed to sell.
Okay. And that's just, I guess it's just as well, because...
We sure love giving it away. That's the fun of it.
Yes. Now, one of the things you guys wanted to talk about is awards. Is that what?
One of the things about the clubs is that they hold these competitions, even to the state fair. Sacramento Home Winemakers has been instrumental in running the fair, and I think that sets up a lot of the
part of it,
the intricate pouring processes and so forth. But a lot of the clubs are the ones that provide the competitions. So, and people enter the competitions. There's one national one that's done by Home Winemaker Magazine. That's an international competition. And that runs about 2,900 entries. Our stuff is between 128 and 150.
We're about our club, which is a smaller one. It's well run, but it's a smaller one at 150 entries.
And state fair is about 900 to give you a size of scale of the competitions.
And so what gets a winemaker a winning ribbon?
3 judges that really like your wine.
Okay.
3 judges that have the same palate. It's known in the judging community that judging is really, what's the words you would use for it?
I'm not going to go say it.
It's, okay. A lot of judges judge by their own taste. If they like it, they're going to give it a high score, not by the merits of the actual wine. But it's subjective. It is subjective. But in scoring, what gets you the medals that get you the attention are what they call double golds. So if all 3 judges...
You said double golds?
Double golds.
Okay.
So there's gold medal wine, but there's double gold medal wines. A double gold is a gold where all 3 judges judge the wine on their own. On the judging sheet, they put a gold on it. A clerk then collects them, and if he sees all 3 of them initially put a gold on it, you're now a double gold. And double golds move...
Even though they have 3 golds, it's a double gold.
Well, it's all 3 have said this wine's a gold.
Okay.
Okay. If 2 said a gold and 1 said a silver, it's just a gold medal.
Okay.
Okay. But if all 3 initially, without any discussion, said it was a gold,
Okay.
it's now a double gold, and that double gold gets you moved farther in the competition.
And then what?
Then,
All the best double golds go head to head.
Okay.
then there's another panel that judge all of those goals or double goals that are selected, and then that's culled, and then it goes, so there's, let's say, you get a double gold and you get best of Zinfandel, and then you get best of red wines, and then you get best of show. And each one of those is one more panel that judges your wine.
Yeah.
Now, what happens to your insides when this is happening?
They spit.
Yeah. Oh man.
It's nerve-wracking for sure.
And the message I'm getting is that you've been there, you've experienced this, and so tell us about your awards, please.
Go ahead.
Well, we've done well at the State Fair. We've had a Best of Bordeaux, which then competes. There was 14 wines, 14 red wines. Then those 14 wines go compete for Best of Red, and that's the big award. So we've been really close. We do our ports. Heather and I do a lot of ports, and we've had Best of Ports, Best of Divisions, and Best of Shows with our ports.
Oh.
So we took Best of Show in 2019. We didn't have a club in a competition in 20 because of COVID.
Yeah.
But this gentleman took Best of Show in 21. So
Yeah, and then also in the State Fair, we've gotten double goals, and I didn't get Best of Show, but in this last competition, they're different.
Last summer?
This
Last
summer,
September?
2021.
Okay.
There are white wines, port wines, rose or blush wines, red wines, some
Desserts.
fruit dessert wines, and each of these are different categories. And so, let's say with red grapes, we entered rose wines and then the red wines. And so you get best of rosés, best of Zinfandel, let's say, or best of blended wines. And then when all those are finished, then they pick kind of a best of show.
well, so each division, so a red division, a white division, a fruit wine division, a sparkling division, a port division, each of those pick who the best that was entered. Those then compete for best of show.
Okay.
So this last 21, I had best of ports, he had best of rosés, and he had best of reds. And there was somebody else with best of whites and somebody else with best of fruit wines. Okay, he took us all down. His red wine, he took us down.
Okay.
It's all good.
Big surprise to me, I'll tell you.
Was it really?
Yes. I knew that I've done well with the rosés, and I'm growing a grape that's a little different than the common grapes. I've got this one
It's an obscure grape for sure.
grape, and for some reason it has done really well in these competitions.
It's good for this area.
Yes,
Yeah, it has to be.
and so
Where did you find it?
a friend of mine was tearing out his vineyard, and me being, with my green thumb kind of thing, I decided to go over and take a bunch of cuttings of this Carmine and his Primitivo before he pulled them all out of the ground. And so I rooted all the cuttings and stuck them in my vineyard. So now I've got this row of Carmine,
Oh, wow.
which not too many people have.
My goodness. So, how big is your vineyard?
About 265 vines,
Okay. How much property does that cover?
about a third of an acre.
Ah,
Not that big.
okay. That's true, but it's still big enough.
Yeah.
That, wow, you don't grow your grapes.
I don't grow.
You buy grapes.
One of the things that we encourage in the wine club is to find your taste for the wine that you like. So I do I'm one of the mentors, as I advise, I say, what is your favorite wine that you like? What region did it come from? And we try and study the kind of wine that they want to make. Okay, mine happened to be Alexander Valley Silver Oak. I like the minerality up in the Alexander Valley. That's what I aspire to make.
Where is that?
Alexander Valley is up by Healdsburg, up Highway 101, north of Sonoma.
Okay. In the wine growing,
Yes,
that wine growing
yes.
area. Yeah.
But I like the minerality of Alexander Valley. Napa makes a fine wine; it's world renowned. But I like the minerality of the Alexander Valley over the Napa.
Huh.
It's just it's just my palate.
Okay.
So we go from there in trying to find what you want to make, and then we match you with a mentor that makes that style of wine. And that's your goal as a new winemaker, is to try and make the best wine for your own palate.
Okay.
We're not trying to impress anybody else. We want to make a wine that we like to drink.
Yeah.
Do we enjoy getting awards and best of shows and double golds? Of course.
Why, yes.
Of course. That's part of the fun along the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's grapes, and then there's making wine. There are two different things. And you buy your grapes, you grow your grapes.
Right.
But at the same time, eventually, the grapes get to be made into wine. And my husband wants to know, how do you decide when you have a good mix of grapes? What are you looking for?
I think the mixing comes after you've crushed and you make the wine. Then you do the blending of the wines that you have. The first part of that question is...
Wait. So when you say blending,
You'll have
not necessarily that is one bottle of wine made up of the same kind, all the same kind of grapes. Can be.
Or the other day I had, I'm tasting this wine and it's a little light on color. It doesn't have as much tannin or backbone as I like. So I go over there and I get a carboy of 5 gallons of wine that is...
A carboy is 5 gallons of wine?
Wine.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And it has tannin and it has color. So I blend that wine with the wine that doesn't have as much of this as I'd like. And therefore, some people blend 2, 3, 4.
I've done 5 up to 8.
Oh, my.
So you get this blending of wine that creates a much better wine than any wine as an individual wine.
Wow.
That's supposed to be the arts part of this.
Really?
I agree with you. Yes. Yeah.
I don't put out any wine that is not blended.
Okay.
Even if it's 2% petite in with my Zen, the petite brings a little more spice into it, brings a little more color into it, makes it a little more attractive, and everything gets something blending. So,
And you keep records, of course.
of course.
Of course. This
course.
is how much of this is in here. This is how much of this is in there, and this percentage and stuff.
And so part of our social network in the club, or a network of friends even out of the club, is to have blending parties. So we bring them in, we have stuff in the barrels, we're considering that in the next couple, 3 months, it's going to be time to bottle. So let's start seeing what we think of the wine. The wine has matured to a point where we say it's settled enough, it's become what it's going to become. So now let's try some other wines in it and do some blending and see if we can have a better tasting wine.
Okay. How long does it take to settle?
What, you mean the wine from?
When it has become what it's what you wanted it to
It's
become.
usually a year and a half
Okay.
to 2 years.
Okay. Sir.
That's when, when the guys are over bottling, we're tasting this.
Also
that,
tasting.
Yeah, I mean, because
Gee
that's
whiz.
part of the program. You taste, part of the fun is the tasting,
Yes.
the barrel tasting.
Listening to music, some good food,
Yes.
tasting.
So,
More tasting.
That's
some
all
more,
good.
More good food. More laughter.
yeah, but the growing is another aspect of the process.
Sure, of course.
So,
My hat's off to Larry. He toils in the vineyard almost daily.
Yes.
And it keeps him going, keeps him out of the bars, and so he loves working his vineyard. And it's real hard to make good wine from bad grapes. So
Oh, yeah.
if you invest in your own vineyard, you better be able to invest the time in that it takes to coax those grapes, those vines, to give you the best grapes they can.
Yeah.
And that's what Larry's very, very good at. Then he takes it and he's a very good steward in the cellar. Okay, and in the cellar, the biggest thing is sanitation. You have to keep everything sanitary.
Sure.
Wine is a living item, and it will accept microbes very, very easily.
Mm-hmm.
So being sterile, and Larry's very good at growing the grapes and running a wonderful winery, if
Yes.
you will, a wonderful cellar.
And so it sort of sounds as if he's doing this all by himself. That's what it sounds like. But we have talked about these wine groups, wine growing, wine making groups, and the grape groups, and so it's not a solitary job.
yes, and depends.
Depends on the size of your operation.
Okay.
I liken the vineyard to the Zen garden. I'm serious about this. That I can go out in the vineyard and I'm perfectly happy out there all by myself, putzing around with my grapes. Then there are other operations.
And you're happy to do those all by yourself.
No, then there are other things that, when it comes to picking and some of the other things, it's a group effort.
Yeah.
And Don is,
My husband.
has helped in all of those operations. So yeah, but there's two sides to that.
So you're by yourself a lot of the time, as a grape grower, as a grape chooser, as well, I guess. But you belong to this intense, eager, happy community, made happy by wine.
Well, yes.
And by the skills you share. It's a wonderful community. When Larry was talking about my husband, it involves also, there's people who pick grapes, people who crush the grapes, people who can a person crush all the grapes for a season by himself?
Well, you can, because you got a big machine, but then the camaraderie of having everybody over and a couple of beers and that kind of thing makes it a lot more fun and goes a lot quicker. And I think that's half the fun of the excitement of crush is really interesting. Everybody gets all revved up about the last couple weeks of August. And everybody's talking about grapes and bricks and pH and all this other good stuff that you use to make the decision when to pick the grapes. And it really is. You get to talk to all your buddies. You call them up on the phone and you find out what their stuff is doing. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, it's also, since you can't sell it, it's having a community helping you is a great way to get rid of your wine.
Yes.
And I'm really gratified.
I think one of the neatest things, if you like wine, and people go up to wine tasting on the weekend, they go to Sonoma or Napa or someplace. There are times when, like after the competition, there's 120 bottles of wine on the table for you to taste. And I've been to people's houses where everybody brings 3 or 4 bottles of wine, and there's 70 or 80 bottles of wine on the counter to taste.
Wow.
To taste.
Yeah.
Everybody brings their good stuff.
Did you say 7 or 8 or 70 or 80?
70 or 80.
Oh, jeez. Wow.
Well, when you're inviting all winemakers to the party, okay,
Yeah.
everybody's bringing their
They're coming
favorites.
for a reason.
Everybody's bringing their favorites. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
We've had quite a few of those at Larry's house.
Yeah, no, really, it's really great with dinners and stuff, and there's everybody, of course, brings their best,
Well, of course.
and so there's 10 bottles of really good wine on the table. It's hard
Sure.
to beat.
Yes. Why, Larry, you've told me that this area is a grape grower's paradise. Why is that? What
Prior to Prohibition, Placer County was a major grape growing area in California, and I guess, from my understanding, during Prohibition, a lot of the grapes were pulled out, and it's starting to come back now. So if you drive down the wine trail, Mount Vernon Road, for instance, in Auburn, and you start looking around, there are all these little vineyards all over the place. One of my friends has got 5,000 vines that just got planted a couple years ago, and there are a number of vineyards that are 600 or 1,000
Ooh.
vines, and there's more and more little wineries springing up. So it's coming back as a grape growing area.
Yeah. Yes.
We'll see.
What makes this area so good, though?
I think a lot of it's climate, microclimate. We don't get really harsh frosts at 1,000, 1,500 feet.
True.
It's not like growing grapes back east. It's warm weather grapes, Syrah, Barbera, some of the other kinds of things. I don't think you want to grow Pinot Noir here, but because it's too hot. But it has some grapes that do well here.
Okay.
One of the reasons that the Lodi region does so well is because it gets the heat of the day, and then it gets the delta breeze coming up the delta at night.
Yeah.
So we here in the foothills get that same effect to a little less of a degree than Lodi, but it's warm during the day, not as hot as the valley. Okay, so it's not as hot as the valley, and then we get the cool breezes at night.
Yeah.
And that really helps out the grapes.
Does it help that we're by rivers? No?
If you're back east, a lot of like Michigan, all the wineries are located right next to the Great Lakes, and it's tempered by
Right
the
next
water.
to the Great Lakes. Okay. Yeah. Okay. One piece of advice for a winemaker.
For a new winemaker?
A winemaker. A new winemaker. A new winemaker. Yes.
A new winemaker. Find yourself a mentor. Okay, be it in a club or not. Okay, so somebody's going to help guide you. Anybody can go on the internet these days and Google how to make wine.
Yes.
Okay, what you're not getting in that information is the quality grapes, the sourcing of quality grapes.
Okay.
When I joined this club, what made me join the club is this club had a source for Alexander Valley Cab, what I was searching for. Okay, this is a relationship that the club has had for 20 years. As a new home winemaker and you want to make 5 or 10 gallons of wine, okay, it's difficult to do so, to go to a commercial winery and say, here, I want 200 pounds. Okay, most commercial vineyards are 2 tons minimum. Okay, you got to buy 4,000 pounds or you don't get in the door.
Okay.
So with our club, when you join a club as well, we do group buys. So we can get into those growers that want the 2 ton, and we split that up amongst the group. So not one of us is having to make 4 barrels of Petite. Okay. Petite is basically a topping wine and adding wine. It's not necessarily a wine that we drink every day. So when you go to a grower and you want the quality Petite to help your wines out, but they require 2 tons, okay, the club can absorb that volume. And
So the
that's
message
part
I'm
of-
getting is that it's good to belong to a club.
Absolutely.
Okay.
A well-established club.
Yeah. And for example, the Placer County Wine and Grape Association, pcwga.org, or the Sacramento Home Winemakers on Facebook. Gentlemen, Thank you very much for joining me.
Okay.
I appreciate what you do and how you do it and the fact of your community. I just think that's a lovely thing. Thank you very much for joining me.
Well, you're most certainly welcome.
Thank you. And thank you for watching.